Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I have been obsessing over macrames for the better half of this year. I discovered them on Pinterest earlier this year around February, and with quarantine and everything, I decided to create my own. I discovered one called the Frame Series macrames. I tried to buy one, but they're pretty expensive, and I'm a huge DIY person. I'm very thrifty, so I decided to make my own, as you guys can see. And if you are interested in how I made this macrame, please stay tuned for this video. So initially we had the macrame on all white wall, but then I felt a little froggy, so I jumped and went ahead and bought black wallpaper that you can stick on yourself. I'm not a huge fan right now, but with the macrame it does add a lot of contrast in a room. However, I do see myself going back to white soon, but stay tuned for the video. So for the macrames, you're gonna need a bunch of colorful yarn. I purchased mine from Walmart. I think I bought a little too much, but now I have plenty to do DIYs with other people. And the yarn is basically just the basic mainstay yarn. They're like $3 and they're 100% acrylic. You will also need a good pair of scissors. You will also need some old picture frames. I took these from my mom's house and my sister. They're a little old and beat up, but they can be used. The tape measure is not a necessity, but it is handy. Initially, I was using a tape measure to basically measure out my yarn one by one, which as you can see is very tedious. So I learned the hard way that this is not the most productive way of doing a macrame. There's spinners or like spinsters or something like that that can be used to make the yarn for you, and you can just cut it and have it pre-cut. So I figured out another method, which I'm going to insert in the next clip. So as a prep for my yarn, I took any random object. In this case is my light stand for filming. I used the top knob and the bottom knob that is used to adjust the height as a sort of anchor that's used to basically thread my yarn for me. As you can see in this next clip, I am basically wrapping the string around the knobs, and then I'm looping it around in a very cyclical manner. It's a little hard because it's not that sturdy, and as you can see, I fumbled quite a bit and I'm short, so I'm struggling through it. I'm sure there's another way, an easier way of doing this. However, this is what I had lying around, and that's what worked for me. Also, you can always use other furniture like the leg of a couch or the leg of a simple chair or other things that you can basically be thrifty yourself to use as a way to measure your yarn in advance. So in order to put the yarn on your frame, you want to take the piece of yarn that you've already measured, and you want to make sure it's long enough because you're going to be folding it in half. Once you fold it in half, you want to take the part that loops around, the one that basically makes the little teardrop. Make sure it's aligned, and then you want to take that teardrop part, and then you want to take that and then put it underneath the picture frame and pull the bottom end through completely. And you want to make it very tight. So as you see in the picture to the left, I started doubling them up like two pieces of yarn at the same time to basically cover more space and going faster. That's an option too, depending on what you're looking to do. So as you add more yarn, your picture frame should start to look like this, very clean and uniform and plush. And in order for you to make the edges kind of even, because it's inevitable, I decided to improvise and use a picture frame that I've already had, a very big one, and I lined it up to my macrame strings, and then I took a pair of scissors and I just started snipping away, and I basically just eyeballed it. Like I said, I'm very DIY, I'm very thrifty. I'm sure there's a better way of doing this, but this is what worked for me with common household items that I could just keep it affordable. Once I figured out the green yarn, I took my black picture frame, the smaller one for the inside, and then I took a piece of the frame to measure the distance of yarn needed from the black frame that's inside to the very bottom. And just keep in mind that you need a long enough piece because you're going to be folding these pieces of yarn in half. So now I'm trying to decide which color I want to go with, and I decided to go with the yellow because it popped a little bit more. Then as you can see, I took this picture frame and started using it as my spinner for the yarn. I'm trying to tell y'all, it was a struggle. I'm sure there's a better way of doing this, but I made it work, and I was able to get the yellow yarn prepped for the black smaller macrame. How many more days could I wait? Made plans with you, and I won't let them fall too. I think I lie for you. I think I die for you. Jodeci cry for you. Do things when you want me to. Like control, controller. Like controller, controller. Like control, controller. Like controller, controller. Okay, you like it when I get aggressive. Tell you to. Once you finish threading your yarn, you basically just take a pair of scissors and then you just cut on one side. Literally just cut on one side. And then you can figure out the logistics and the length and stuff like that later and trim if needed. As you can see, I'm trimming the pieces that are too long. So you want to start doing the same thing as described earlier. I was using 2 to 3 pieces of yarn at this point because I was over it, to just make it go faster. I'm sure there's a better way of doing this, but this is the best way that I know. So I just kept trying to make sure that they were even. You want to go ahead and periodically put it into the other macrame to see if that the sizes and the lengths are adding up. And just like I did before, I'm putting the macrame in the middle, basically finger combing the yarn, and then I'm going to use the frame that I used before to basically make sure that my edges or my lines are straight once I trim across. And I got my blue yarn and I used the same method as I did before to basically measure the length of how long it is going to be and where I wanted it to fall. And once I did that, I went ahead and started prepping for the yarn. So the last section left was the orange yarn, and I've already pre-cut these, so I put them on the same exact way I did the rest, except I got tired of doing it on the floor. So eventually I ended up getting a hook for the door and hooked my frame onto that and used that as my anchor to basically do my macrame. As you can see here, I got sloppy. I started tying it, which I don't recommend because it makes it look really bulky and basically jagged, so you don't want to do it that way. Sorry guys, I didn't film me hanging it up, but this is the final product. Like I said, we ended up putting black wallpaper, and this is my favorite nook to take selfies. I hope you like this tutorial. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.